They don't use the same religion we have. They're not Catholic, right? That was a big deal. They were not Catholic.
Right. They talk around it.
They talk around it, but they don't really get there.
Right.
So this guy is, he's having a great time. It's a Sunday morning. He's making money more than he probably ever made in a week because I agreed to whatever he wanted to. So we're driving up and we pass, basically gauchos, guys on the horseback with the hats and everything else. They're coming down the mountain. And it's a dirt road going up. And I realized we're getting really, really remote. Then we passed by a place called Colonia Italiana, which is like the first place you get to before you get to Colonia Dignidad. And I said, Colonia Italiana? He says, yes, Italian. And it was kind of poor and run down. And I said, okay. An Italian colony, now the German colony.
Sure.
Okay, all right. So we get to the German colony, and it's quiet. There's a gate, and it's open, right?
What does it look like? Does it look like German architecture?
Not yet.
Okay.
We cross over a little bridge, a little tiny, like pointless kind of looking bridge. There's a gate that's wide open. We drive to this like gravel parking lot, but there's nothing there's no cars parked there. We're the only ones. And there's a building there that seems to be like maybe a guardhouse maybe or something like that. It's a large enough building. It could be for meetings or something, or maybe for dealing with the press. I mean, I don't know. It's just a building. No sign on it that I could see. I walk up to the building and I hear voices on the other side of the building. And it seems like they're talking on a radio.
Do you hear the language
no,
they're speaking?
It's German.
It's German.
Yeah, for sure. So I said, okay. I took a bunch of pictures. I got into the car and I said, okay, let's go. I just want to take pictures. I said, let's get out of here.
Yep.
He says, okay with me.
Yep.
And as we're pulling out, that's when the Mercedes, the mysterious Mercedes pulls out. The gates close. Mercedes blocks our way of getting out. And two really big guys get out of the Mercedes on either side. And they stand on either side of the car, just looking, not speaking.
Big blonde guys.
Yeah.
Big
blonde, heavy set
Yep.
wrestler types.
Yep.
On either side of the car. And I'm looking at each, and my driver, all he can say is, uh-oh, 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 over and over again. I wanted him to stop saying it.
Please stop saying it.
But he was pretty frightened at what was happening. This isn't good, right?
Were you?
The funny thing is, a kind of switch went off in my head that said, keep your cool, we got to get out of this.
Okay.
Do not freak out, right? It was a kind of, something took over that said, just brass it out, right?
Man, you're no armchair researcher, man.
No,
this
I left
is balls
the armchair now.
this is balls of steel. This is real stuff.
Stupidity of steel.
Yes.
And I'm sitting there, I hear someone's running at the car, and I'm thinking, and it's somebody's out of breath, and he's wearing a lab coat.
What?
Yeah, a lab coat. That's all I needed to see, So is it safe? So I don't, I'm flashing on movies.
Sure.
Marathon Man.
Oh, yes.
So here's a guy in a lab coat, and he knocks on the window, tells me to roll down the window, which I had rolled up. So I roll down the window. Yes. And he looks at me and he says the classic line that I've waited my entire life to hear since Casablanca. Your papers, please.
No.
Yeah, exactly those words in that tone. Your papers, please. How wonderful was that moment,
Fear and joy fighting.
So he's looking like, you better hand me your passport or we're going to get it.
Mm-hmm.
So I took out my passport and I handed it to him. And he walked away with it, right? Which is a sinking feeling for any citizen.
Like,
what?
What?
Yeah. That's happened to me a number of times since, but not as bad as this. So this was, when am I getting it back? No one's talking. And then who shows up but Paul Schaefer himself, the leader. The leader stands behind the car like he doesn't want to be seen, but he's wearing a Sam Brown belt. He has the military jacket on, the whole uniform, and he's got like a fatigue campaign cap on his head, and he's hands on the hips like this, and he's barking questions in German to this person who's then translating it into English, because I refuse to speak Spanish under these circumstances. My Spanish being not good enough to negotiate for my life.
Fair enough.
I make a grammatical error, I could be doomed, right? So,
but at that point, you could probably pick up a little German.
I could pick up the German
so
as well.
You're
right.
catching words.
Oh, of course, right. But not enough that I could speak. So I'm listening to that go on, and so they're translating for me. Why are you here? Right? I'm here researching German immigration to South America. That got a huge laugh out of Schaefer, right? Yeah, bullshit, he's saying.
Of course.
And okay, that's not it. Okay, next question. When did you arrive here? right? Kind of given basically when I got here. At the same time they're talking to me, they're talking to the driver. But they're asking him more pointed questions. How many of them are there? When did they arrive? Where are they living?
Did they pull you out of the car separate?
No, we're still
Okay.
in the car.
Okay.
I still feel safe. I'm still in the car. I don't have a passport
Nope.
and I can't get out, but I'm still safer. So they're asking him these very pointed questions. And finally, in Spanish, and I can understand perfectly what they're asking him. And then they ask him, they say this one thing: we have to be careful of the Jews. There's a lot of Jews these days. They're around, and we have to be very careful.
What an odd thing to say, no?
It was odd until just a couple of years ago I found out what that meant. I only found out recently what that really meant. But at the time, I thought they must think I'm some kind of an Israeli commando.
Do you want to tell us what that...
This was an Israeli commando.
Right.
If you can see me, no, this is not what an Israeli commando looks like. And I was in my 20s at the time. You can imagine, 120 pounds. No, not a commando.
But are they also worried about Mossad, Nazi hunters, all of that?
All of that.
Okay.
Of course. Yeah. Nazi hunters for sure, as I found out later. But again, later. At this time, I'm going on Ladislas Farrago's book. That's all I got.
That's all you got.
Right? So the rest of it, I don't know. So I'm there, and they're talking back and forth to me, back and forth. They come back and they hand me the passport, thank God. But they tell me a very strange thing. They say to me, you're no longer welcome in this country. You must leave immediately, go back to the United States, and do not come back again. People who are Germans in Chile telling me I'm not welcome in Chile. Not welcome here at Colonia Dignidad, no problem, I won't be back. But telling me, no, we don't want you in Chile.
But you don't say, you don't have jurisdiction.
Yeah, sure, I'm going to say that. Here's my jurisdiction, right?
You say, okay.
Okay, no worries. Remember, I have the driver as well. They pull me out and kill me. He's a dead goner.
For sure.
He's the witness.
For sure.
That's not going to happen, right? We cannot fight with these guys. So, all right, the car pulls away, the gate opens, we hit the road. My driver starts laughing uncontrollably. He says, oh my God, you don't know what danger we were in. We got out of there. You are so lucky. He says, this could have turned out so. He's just like laughing the whole way down. He can't believe the relief.
Of course.
Was incredible. Incredible. He gets back into Parral, into the town. And he wants to tell everybody what happened.
Of course,
right? And
great.
I pay him like, I forget how much money. He must have made $100 that day. And then
Are you relieved as well? You just wanted your passport back.
I wanted my passport back. I'm okay.
Right.
I don't know if I'm getting out of the country, quite frankly.
Still?
Well, I don't know what's going on here with these guys. How can they tell me I'm not welcome? What influence do they have over the border patrol?
But
right?
you felt they had it.
I felt they had it because what happens next, two more carabinieri walk up to me, two more cops, and they say, are you the guy that... And I said, yeah. Is your name Peter Lavenda? Oh, shit. How do you have my name?
Yeah.
Right? Can we see your passport? I showed them the passport. They look at each other. Okay. Are you going back now to Santiago? You bet your sweet ass I am. So, okay, I waited for the bus as usual because I'm a New Yorker. I take the bus. I got on the bus and I'm going back to Santiago. And halfway up, like not halfway, twice on the way up, so I guess every third of the way up, the bus is stopped. That didn't happen on the way down. And troops come onto the bus asking for me by name.
Oh, no.
To make sure I'm on the bus.
Oh.
That freaked me out.
That did?
Yeah. That means, yes, they have that clout. They could tell the Chilean military and the Chilean army, right? Look out for this guy, make sure he leaves the country.
Yep.
So I get back to Santiago. I get back to my room in the hotel there. I open the door, and there's a note. Your reservation is confirmed.
You're going.
So they got Lon Chile to make sure they controlled that as well.
Yep.
Right? So I was on the flight. So I get on the plane, and I'm cool as a cucumber. I'm sitting next to two people, a married couple, who actually worked for Flying Tigers in Asia. You believe it? And so it was a shipping company, but it started as, this ad hoc sort of civilian military air force that was bombing the Japanese back in the day during World War II. And they became then part of the regular Air Force, kind of, and then they became, a shipping company, basically.
Yeah, that was like a Shanghai Czech thing, wasn't it?
Yeah. And they're sitting next to me in the plane. That's weird. And as I'm sitting there, suddenly, I start to feel ill. I get up and I go into the restroom in the back of the plane, and I am sick as a dog for almost the entire flight back. The tension finally hit me.
Finally.
The adrenaline hit on the plane out of the country. It kept me sane and sober and perfectly measured until I got on the plane. And then I was freaking out.
Yes.
So I finally got myself together just before landing. That's a long flight from Santiago to and actually it was only to Santiago to Miami. I wasn't supposed to go to Miami. I was supposed to go to New York. But it was the first plane they had that could get me on and get out of the country. So I get off the plane in Miami, and I'm sick as a dog. I'm walking through immigration, and then it starts again. Then two guys meet me at the airport at immigration. Two of our people.
Right.
They flash some badges, too fast for me to see what it is, and they say, "Are you Peter Lavenda? Can we see your passport?" And I showed it to them. They looked at each other. They nodded like the Chileans did, and they walked away, no explanation. My people, right? People were supposed to protect me.
Right.
Were making sure I was getting off the plane. So they didn't somehow get off somewhere else.
All being controlled by some remote German village.
Yeah. Imagine that. So
Having
when people ask me, and they did ask me in the Patreon, they asked me, what do you think? Does this still go on?
Are you kidding?
Hello. So then, okay, now I'm still shaking, right? I get past immigration. I get a booking to go to New York. And there's the Miami Herald. And I open it up. And there's the headlines. West German Parliament votes to continue statute of limitations on Nazi war crimes. In other words, they were voting in the German Parliament that week whether or not they would continue to hunt Nazis.
Oh, no.
And they voted to continue to hunt Nazis. And they thought at Colonia Dignidad I was there as an agent provocateur or something to try to make them do something stupid.
Of course.
To switch the vote, to make sure I influenced the vote. That's their thinking, their rationale. So I said, oh my God, this is what happened.
This was a terrible idea.
Yes. And then I get back to New York, right? I'm fine. I get back to Bendix, right? Oh, where did you go? Chile. For what? Not to hang out. I didn't tell them what I was doing. So that's fine. And then what happens? Jack Anderson. If anybody remembers Jack Anderson, he was a famous journalist. At the time, an investigative journalist. He was in all the newspapers and stuff. He had columns everywhere. Very famous guy in the 70s and 80s. He had stories on Colonia Dignidad. He was running stories on it after I got back. I said, thanks a lot, Jack.
After you got back?
Yeah, not about me at all. Just about that Colonia Dignidad was being investigated. The CIA knew about it. Were there Nazi war criminals there?
And that was all happening while you were there?
Yeah.
Just wandering. So, of course.
Of course there's synchronicity, right?
Yes,
of course these things happen, right? So I'm thinking, okay, my goose is cooked. Now they think I was responsible back at the colony. My friends down at the colony, back at the ranch, they think, that I did something here. So now I'm freaking out, right? And I did have problems. So now I'm on the street. I'm in Queens. I'm going to Astoria. I'm going to eat Greek food in Astoria. That's what you do in Astoria.
It is.
I went to Astoria to have some Greek food. And I'm walking down the street. And this guy walks up to me. He's wearing a white suit. And he has a red carnation in his lapel. And he walks up to me and he says, "Don't worry, you're among friends."
Oh.
And then he walked off.
I don't want any part of whatever that is. What are you talking about?
Right?
What are you talking about?
Now I'm going to Brooklyn. I'm going to Brooklyn just because I used to live in Brooklyn Heights. I'm going down to Brooklyn. And a taxi with 4 big guys in it starts following me down the street, calling me Jude. Right? They're talking to me in German, calling your blah, 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 so-and-so Jew, on and on, going on about this, right? And they're following me, and I don't know what to do. They're getting ready to get out of the car and beat the shit out of me. So I have to go down a one-way street that they can't drive down and try to lose them, So all of this is taking place. This is all in 1979. This is all so weird. This is all like, part of the same problem that's going on. So that went on for a while. And then that same, I think just a month or so after I got back from Chile, Bendix no longer needed my services.
Of course not. That's that.
That's that. So all of this was, all tied in, all connected together, I imagine. But that was what was going on. So that was my adventure down there in Colonia Dignidad in South America. But that led me to really energize me on the research. This was too much. I couldn't walk away from it. And I couldn't say, well, that's it. This is too dangerous. I'm not going to do this. This was like, if you're an investigator, if you investigate, you're a journalist of any kind, you need this, right?
You do.
You have
You
to have.
needed to, you
You
needed
know.
that. You needed that
You
experience.
need it. You need the experience, and you need to keep going.
I'm the armchair researcher, though. I don't have the balls to go down there.
These days,
But yeah,
armchair can be just as dangerous.
well, this is a great time to take a quick break because we come back and then now it gets thick. Now it gets thick.
Yes, now it gets thick.
Yeah,
Okay.
back in a minute. I didn't realize how amazing that story is.
The problem is when you start with one, there's so many tentacles that reach into other aspects of everything that, that's the problem. You just can't tell the straight story. I have a problem doing that, and I know that I can go on, so I've tried to narrow down to the essentials. But sometimes there's an aspect that connects to something that we've talked about already that's, pertinent and is relevant. And, what can I do? That's, I tell people, I use this expression all the time. I say, I Forrest Gumped my way into this, right? I wasn't intending to join a church that
Right.
was, a front for an intelligence operation. I mean, to begin with, right? I just wanted to get out of going to Vietnam, right?
Right.
Had this been 1942, I would have enlisted. It's what happened, right? So there was no intention to wind up where I wound up. I look back now, and there was a fork in the road at that point,
Yes.
and that's what happened. And then people think, well, you must have this, you must have these connections or those connections. Nah, you just pay attention. You just show up. 90% of success, right, is just showing up.
That's right.
So what you have to do is show up. A New Yorker said that. So what you have to do is just be there. Be there, be aware, keep your eyes open, and when you see opportunities, you take them if you can. If you can't, you file it away for next time, and you'll be more aware. But I think that a lot of people essentially go through life either afraid to take those chances, or smarter than I am, and don't take the chances, or whatever. But
Or don't recognize the opportunity.
don't recognize the opportunity, right? And they don't have. It's a question of imagination, and that was my thing as a kid. I was really an imaginative kid, so I lived in my head a lot. I read a lot of books. I imitated the writing of people that I liked and that kind of thing. So I was like in that mindset all the time. So it made me sensitive to certain things maybe other people weren't sensitive to.
Well, this is a storytelling show, so whatever
Yeah.
detail, color you want to add, that's fine. So is the Chile experience what led to Unholy Alliance?
Yes. You see, basically the Chile thing was supposed to be a chapter of Sinister Forces. I was just going to do one chapter on the Nazis. That was my idea initially. But I came across all that data at the archives, the National Archives, the stacks of paper on the Tibet expedition and all this other weird stuff the Nazis were doing. And then, Colonia Dignidad, all of this said, it became a book, basically. I didn't know what else to do with that information. I was gathering it together, and around about in the 1990s was when Unholy Alliance finally became a book. That was my first book. It took that long. When I made the trip in 1979, it took that long to find somebody who was interested in that story.
Right.
And I said, it's Nazi occultism, but has ramifications beyond that, right? It has political ramifications. People tend to think Nazi occultism is this kooky, side alley of history. And most historians think of it that way too. A lot of the feedback I still get from academia where this is concerned is, it's not that important. It's not really, essential to understanding it. You're overblowing it. It's not. I said, I'm just quoting what I saw.
Yeah,
right?
I disagree. I think it's very important.
I kind of think so because it speaks to something darker.
Yes, it
about
does.
it.
Something that's still here.
Right. It's
It-
not only a story about battles won and lost, right? Why did they go to war in the first place? Why did the Holocaust happen? Why did they invade Russia? That didn't make any sense, right?
Right.
Why did they do half the things they did? Why did they send SS officers all around the world looking to see if there were swastikas painted in old pots, in the jungles of South America or the jungles of Asia or someplace? Why were they doing this? What was the end game here? What was really what they were trying to establish? They were trying to establish a complete ecosystem for Nazism, right? To rewrite history completely from a Nazi racist eugenicist point of view. That's what they were trying to do. And if we look at it only in terms of the battles that they fought, we won't understand them.
No, the Reich meant the whole thing.
The whole thing.
Yep.
And that's why I always tell people the Nazi Party was not a political party the way you think of it. It was a cult. It was a complete cult. If you study Nazism, you are studying a cult. That's it. So Nazi occultism is almost, a tautology. I mean, we are talking about Nazism and occultism, but it was kind of the same thing for a while. Under Himmler, of course it was. But Hitler as well, he didn't. I always fight with people who claim that Hitler performed magical rites or something. No, I don't think that at all. But he was very well aware of all of that material. As a poor, impoverished painter in Vienna, he made a lot of very strange friends.
Of course.
And he read a lot of strange literature,
Yep.
which helped fuel this idea of a master race, fuel the idea that Europe should be for one race only, fuel the idea that there was pure Germans and not pure Germans. All of this he was reading in the occult magazines of the day, the fate magazines of their time. He was picking all of this up at the time.
But do you think Himmler was driving it?
Oh, Himmler was off to the races where
Yep.
this was concerned. He was totally sold on it. Remember, Himmler was one of the earliest followers of Hitler,
Yep.
as well was Rudolf Hess.
Yes.
Rudolf Hess was very much into the occult as well. I mean, he picked an occult auspicious day for his flight to England, right? He was very much into it. He claimed he was in telepathic communication with his wife after he was arrested and thrown into Spandau prison. So he claimed he was in telepathic communication all the time. They talked occultism all the time. So Hess, Himmler, and then the other people around him in that circle, including some of the people who got him involved with Japan, right? These were people who said, don't get involved with China. They're like the mongrel race of Asia.
Right.
You know, the Japanese are the elite.
Yep.
You want to be allied with the Japanese. A major political decision was made on some guy that had visited Japan, right? And was studying Japanese and thought that this was, you know, a good thing to do. I mean, and he died in the camps. He was eventually, they got rid of him and his son because they were thinking about maybe joining a conspiracy to overthrow Hitler
Mm-hmm.
at the end. That didn't work out. But the Nazi Party itself, where did it come from? Right? The Deutsche Arbeiterpartei was invented almost out of whole cloth in the basement of a hotel in Munich in the Four Seasons.
Mm-hmm.
And in the same hotel, it's a Thule Gesellschaft had meetings in the same rooms. The Thule Gesellschaft was a blatantly occult organization.
We know it as the Tula Society.
Thule Society,
Okay.
right. Gesellschaft, Society, same thing, the Thule Society. Their symbol was the swastika, right? That's where that came from. But it has earlier antecedents, right? So the
Sure.
swastika, not only as around the world, it's a symbol from around the world, but the Theosophical Society embraced it. When the American Theosophical Society was founded in New York City, it was called the Aryan Theosophical Society, and they had the swastika. And these were the Blavatsky followers.
And when was that? This is
Around the same time as Blavatsky had started what we know as the Theosophical Society, which also started in New York City.
Did
by the way.
Hitler and his crew base this ideology on Blavatsky's?
No, well, not Hitler. No. What happened? For those of you interested in this part of ancient history, what happened was that the swastika was seen by the German racial theorists of the turn of the century. So we're talking 1890s, 1900s, 1910s. They saw that as the symbol of the Aryan race. And they got some of that from Blavatsky, because Blavatsky talked about Aryan race in terms of root races and what races were coming into power, which races were leaving it. She had some kind of dark things to say about Jews. She insisted that the Afghans were the real Jews in one book.
I discount her importance in history, I think.
Yeah.
I think I do.
Yeah. I think that...
Because when I read it,
Yeah.
it's like, who would believe this?
Who would
Sounds
believe it?
wacky. Theosophy is wacky.
But at the time, it
Right.
was a response to Darwin, right? The religions were being shaken by this idea of the origin of species and the possibility of evolution. The religions were the ones to get the brunt of that,
Sure.
because science was saying, no, it was not Adam and Eve, right? It came from this long line of monkeys, right? And then branches were, branched off, and you had monkeys on the one side and the humans on the other. That didn't sit well with the Genesis people.
Right.
So that was a problem. So you had Blavatsky come along and spiritualize Darwinism and say, we can look at it as spiritual evolution. And that kind of made everybody sit back and think, oh, maybe we can work with this, right? But then that worked for everybody. So you had the Germans, the Austrians, and people in the northern regions thinking to themselves, yeah, well, we had religions before, we had symbols, we had runes, we had all of this stuff. We had our own race, we had our own religion, we had our own. So there was this idea that maybe, yeah, we could go along with this theosophical thing. Maybe they're talking to us right now. This ancient racial knowledge, ancient racial mysticism theory.
Sure.
So that was very much, I think, part of it when World War I was coming to an end. And the communists were in danger of taking over Germany, which we forget was going on in 1918.
Yes.
Germany was falling apart. They had lost the war. Their troops were coming back from Russia saying, yeah, we want a workers' revolution, right? So you had the Navy was turning red. Different cities were turning red. All this was happening. And suddenly, out of nowhere in Munich, comes the Stahlhelm, the Freikorps brigades, these sort of militias. And one of these militias had the swastika symbol as their symbol as they marched into Munich.
Just one unit.
One unit, one big unit, but one very violent, brutal unit.
Yep.
But the swastika was their symbol. And the Thule Gesellschaft had the swastika as their symbol. In 1919, there was a massacre of people who worked at the Thule offices. I think it was 7 people who were massacred on April 30th, 1919, Walpurgisnacht, which is a very famous holiday in Europe. It's their Halloween, basically. So there was a massacre that took place. These people were killed, and there was an ad in the newspaper that the Thulists put out commemorating this massacre. They said these people were just killed. One of them was a von Thurn und Taxis, which is one of the noble blood Prussian types, was killed, also part of this. So you had all these people who were killed, and that sparked an outrage in Munich. So suddenly you had red units fighting the German unit, what color we call them, they're not reds.
Right.
The Reds fighting the fascists. So you had this Stahlhelm brigade, the Freikorps brigades. Now they're using the swastika as their symbol. Maybe in commemoration of the Thulists who were killed, because that was their symbol. We don't really know the chain of events.
Yeah.
There could be that. But they came in with that, the swastika, with a song about the swastika. They even had a song that they would sing as they were marching. So that was 1919 already. Long before Hitler came to power, long before there was the Nazi Party as we understand it. So Hitler, who had been in the trenches in World War I, had written poetry to the Nordic gods, to Thor
That's
and Odin.
right. Thor and Odin.
So he was already on that wave.
Yes.
And those poems have been reproduced, I think, in the famous, one of the big histories of
One of his biographies.
one of the biographies, yeah. Toland's history. So it's in there. You can read the poetry yourself. So it's there. So he was already on that wave. He was already talking about, and what was he a fan of? Wagner, right?
Yeah.
He was a total Wagnerian. He would stand SRO in the back of the halls where they were doing, Tannhäuser, and stand there for like 4 hours, however long that thing takes. And he was just totally into it. So you got Wagner, which has a mystical element writ large, but it's mystical Nordic paganism.
How do you think Hitler got attracted to that? Where did that leak in from? Because that wasn't a movement, no?
Not particularly, no. I mean, Wagner, of course, was
Yes.
Wagner. But I think he got into I think it was an emotional thing. He had watched his mother die of cancer, I think on Christmas Eve. And the doctor who was treating her was Jewish, as it turned out.
Mm-hmm.
So there's something going on in the background there. I don't know all the details, but having your mother die on Christmas Eve is kind of Wagnerian,
Yes, it is.
So it could be something to do with that. So anyway, he is sent to investigate the German Workers' Party by a group within the military that's trying to salvage whatever they can of the German government before it collapses entirely and becomes communist. So he is sent there as a spy, basically. Go and check these people out and see what they're up to. And he was looking at them and thinking, he went back and said, they need a little help. I think I can help them. And he went back and said, we're going to change the name of this organization. German Workers' Party sounds too red, too communist. You guys are Thulists, basically. You're in the same freaking building and the same room as theirs. We're going to change this. We're going to make it the National Socialist German Workers' Party. And they said, National Socialist? That sounds a little red too, doesn't it? And he says, but it's National Socialist.
Right.
We're not internationalists like those other guys. We don't care about other countries. We only care about National Socialism. He joins that, and he changes it entirely, and he adopts the swastika, though, as their symbol. He takes it from the Thule Society and puts it there. So there was a guy called Sabatendorf, Baron von Sabatendorf. He had founded, or one of the co-founders of the Thule Society. When Hitler came and took it over, Sabatendorf says, yeah, maybe I'm out of here. So he goes back to Turkey, where he's appreciated for what he is. And he had been an occultist and astrologer and all this kind of stuff. He had been doing all of this. He had basically given the Thule Society all of its mystical fascinations, right? He goes to Turkey. He comes back from Turkey, and he writes a book before Hitler came. He's going to reveal what happened, how Hitler took over the party, what the party was like before, what Tula Gesellschaft was, the Tula Society was, all of this stuff, and it's banned, right? They throw him in jail, right? They're going to kill him. I think he escapes, if I'm not mistaken, goes back to Turkey. But his books were unavailable. You couldn't get it because that was, especially after the Night of the Long Knives, when Hitler really took over power.
Right.
All of that stuff was out, right? People who knew him from before killed or they disappeared. Anybody who was part of that scene. So we have reason to believe that Hitler maybe was more involved in occult thinking than he was, but all the witnesses are dead. So we don't know, right? Yeah, I think he was. I don't think he had patience with occult societies per se, because he didn't have patience with the German Workers' Party either. I mean, he didn't have patience with sloppy organization and stuff, and that's pretty much the hallmark of most occult societies. Is a lot of sloppy organization. So I think he thought to himself, no, we can't have this, and he definitely was not going to join any society that he was not the president of.
Of course.
So none of it made sense after that point. The generals knew, right? And some generals tried to kill him.
Mm-hmm.
And it didn't work. That didn't make sense either, right? They were all there in the room. They had the bomb. Hitler escapes. Right?
He's behind the table or something.
Behind the table, right? So this is the problem. This is the problem that I see. It's not just what we can see and prove. There's something else that's going on. Something else underneath the surface of all of this that's making sure these things happen.
I was just going to say Hitler was inevitable.
Yeah.
Because of whatever it is under there.
Right.
I think that could be part of our fascination, is it's a way to tap into that darkness just to try to understand it. Because I'm drawn to those stories.
Sure.
Even though you despise the man and everything he stands for, but he's digging for Spear of Destiny, Holy Grail, Ark of the Covenant.
Yeah.
That's interesting stuff.
Sure it is. Fascinating. It's somebody who has the money, the means, and the resources to say, and the will to say, we're going to go and find the Holy Grail, right? Send poor Otto Rahn out there to find the Holy Grail.
Yeah.
Let him do it. He can do it. He's written stuff like that. So I mean, that's and we're looking for that. We're looking for somebody to say, let's go find the Holy Grail. And we don't have that yet. We don't have a person that has that division that can excite people to that extent, to the better angels of their nature, right? We're looking for somebody to do that, and to do it with class.
Yes.
To do it with elan, to do it with style, to do it in a Hugo Boss outfit.
Yes.
To do that, we're looking for that. We're kind of conflating it with masculinity, I think, to a certain extent. We think it's masculine to be that rigid, to be that Nazi.
I think so. Stoic.
Stoic.
Yep.
Yeah. Courageous.
Courageous, in control, organized.
Yeah. So we associate that with Nazism, right? Or we associate Nazism with that. You can be that and not be a Nazi, but the Nazi is the most easily accessible image that we have.
Right.
Of that, right? And it's our fault that it is, because we keep portraying them that way. There are a lot of cowardly Nazis out there.
Of course.
They were drug addicted. They were psychopathic. They were horrible human beings that put on the uniform and had the badges, but they didn't strut like, Werner Klemperer, I mean, they were not, Hogan's Heroes. I mean, they were a comic opera Nazis. There were a lot of them.
Of
right?
course. And we need to stop calling each other Nazis.
Yeah, well.
That's not it.
Unless you really are.
Yeah, unless you really are.
Yeah. But we need to draw a distinction as to what means Nazi.
We do.
So that's
1947. Kenneth Arnold sees some weird stuff. Draws the little delta wings.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think it's a couple months later, Tacoma, Seattle area, Maury Island, there's a UFO incident. Do you want to tell this? I've covered this at length. Do you want to tell the story? You tell it great.
Well, I mean, I'll try to make it brief because I know there's a lot more we could do with it.
You don't have to. You don't have to. And I'll just add color like John Madden.
Okay. Well, yeah. The Kenneth Arnold sighting was June, I think, right?
Yes.
Roswell was in July.
Yep.
So it was in between that period, kind of. It was really close to Kenneth Arnold's sighting, where a guy called Harold Dahl, Dahl, he's in a little boat out in Puget Sound. He's got his dog there and his son. And they're in the boat, I forget for whatever reason. But they're just sailing around.
They're scavenging logs.
Scavenging logs. There we go.
Yep.
Log scavengers.
Yep.
Which is a thing. And so they're out there scavenging logs. And in the middle of their scavenging, what happens is something flies over them. A bunch of things fly over them. But one of these things that are flying over them is in distress of some kind, and it rains down a kind of shrapnel or slag onto the boat, killing the dog and wounding his son in some case. Harold Dahl freaks out, sails back to port, and he goes to the port master, I guess, at that time, who's a guy called Fred Krisman. And he says, Fred, they killed my dog. It's the first ever UFO fatality.
I don't mean to laugh, but
Well, and by the way, also my son got damaged. But the main thing is the dog.
Right.
So, and Krisman says, what happened? And he shows him the slag, the whatever that was that fell. And Krisman is saying, you saw what? What did you see? Well, you heard this thing about Kenneth Arnold? There were these things flying around. Was it like maybe like that? And Dahl is saying, well, yeah, kind of like that. It was like a squadron of them or something, and they flew over. But one of them was raining this stuff on top of us. So one thing led to another between Krisman and Dahl. And they start calling people. And this is a long story, but to make it manageable, they eventually call the Air Force, right? This is 1947. The Air Force is in the middle of a transition. They're going to become a separate entity, but right now they're Army Air Force. And there's an Air Force base near Tacoma, and they're going to send some guys down to look it out. There was something going on, so let's look it out. Let's check it out. At the same time, though, Krisman decides to contact a friend of his, Schaefer, who writes these weird tales magazines. He's an editor of these magazines that does these strange stories.
Amazing stories or something like that. Yeah.
Something like that. And tells him the story. He says, we could do a story about this. We can make a weird story and write about it. And Schaefer says, yeah, it sounds good, right? Write about it. Let's write it up and do this. So we're in this era where it's kind of fact and fiction already is together. There's something factual that happened, but now they're creating stories about it to sell magazines. At the same time, he's contacting Kenneth Arnold, saying, Ken, can you come and talk to us? We're going to get some guys from the Air Force. We're going to get together and talk about what you saw and what happened to us, in Puget Sound. And Arnold is like, I don't know. He was kind of hesitant about it, but they eventually managed to convince him to go.
Yep.
So he shows up, but there's no reservation for him at the hotels.
Everything's booked.
Everything's booked. There's a convention or something in town. It's a small town anyway, by today's standards. Everything is booked until he calls the most expensive hotel in town, and they already have a booking for him.
Yes, they do.
How do they have a booking? And he's amazed. I didn't make a booking. Nobody that I know made a booking, but there's a booking. So he gratefully accepts the booking, and he's in this hotel, a very, like I say, a fancier hotel than what he was expecting. And they have a meeting in there. There's Fred Krisman, Raoul Dahl, and these two Air Force guys, and, Kenneth Arnold.
Did those Air Force guys come out of Wright-Patterson? Was that a Blue Book dispatch?
I don't think, because they came right away. I think they must have been local.
Close by? Okay.
I think they were local. But they were Air Force intelligence.
Yes, they were.
For sure. So.
And we know their names. That's all.
We know their names.
Yeah.
They were a FOSI, or what would become a FOSI later on. So they show up and they, listen politely to this whole discussion. And Kenneth Arnold's a famous guy now because of the saucer stuff, the Delta wing craft that he saw. So they're all having a nice time together talking about this. And then the Air Force guy says, listen, okay, can you give us the stuff that you collected? We'll take it back and have it analyzed. We'll take it back to base. And Krisman says, okay, they get a cereal box. They couldn't think of anything better than a cereal box. And they put all this slag in the cereal box. Not all of it, probably, but a box full. And at the last moment, they hand it over to the Air Force guys. They put it on board their plane. They wave goodbye, see ya, get onto the plane, take off, and moments later, the plane explodes in midair. And these two Air Force people are killed. I think the pilot makes it out alive.
Did he?
I think somebody made it out alive.
That was a B-25.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think he made it out, but they definitely did not. And the slag went with them, wherever that went. So these are really not the dog, but these are the first fatalities of the UFO era, I guess. Yeah. So this is bad enough, right? But there was a reporter who was trying desperately to find out what they were talking about in that hotel room, and they were not talking to the reporter.
I think it was Tom Morello. Yeah?
Yes, Tom Morello. And yet, old Tom, he did manage to find out what was happening.
Yes, he did.
He heard a transcript of what was happening in that hotel room.
Yep.
They had that place mic'd in 1947. Okay? They had that room set up.
Of course.
Everything was all arranged. They went there. So who was doing the taping? It wasn't the Air Force officers, most likely. They went down with the ship. So who is doing that taping? Who is actually behind the mic? We don't know. Tom Morello can't tell us. He died.
That's right. It's pretty soon after, yeah?
Pretty soon after. Died very mysteriously. So he's gone. And that transcript, I guess, gone with him. So what was going on? What was that all about? Now, that's not the end of the story.
Oh, by no means.
Unfortunately, it gets worse. Because at the same time this is happening, there's this rather portly dude called Bannister. I don't know what the W stands for. Walter, maybe? Guy Bannister. W. Guy Bannister.
Rings a bell.
He's an FBI agent.
Out of Pacific Northwest.
Out of Pacific Northwest. But he has a brief. He's been told directly by J. Edgar Hoover himself. There's all this weird UFO stuff going on. Flying saucers, Kenneth Arnold, all this stuff. I need you to go out there, keep tabs on all of this. Any UFO sighting, I want to hear about it. Any people who saw occupants, aliens, you tell me, you get back to me on this. And fortunately, what we do is we have the documentation. Because old Guy Bannister, he sent airtels. And airtel was the old-fashioned form of a telegram. I'm saying telegram, people don't know what I'm talking about. But anyway, it's a way of sending a digital message to somebody. But it had to be printed on paper eventually. So Guy Bannister is out there, and he's religiously, he's visiting people. He's like a Men in Black kind of guy. He's going where there's sightings, he's asking questions, and then he's reporting back to Hoover directly.
And just to jump in,
Yeah.
that telegram, those are X files.
Yes, they are.
Those are designated as X.
If you look at the originals, they're called X/files.
Yep.
This
Real
was the
thing.
origin. These are the real thing.
Yep.
The real X-Files. And they're all about UFOs.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely, it's consistent. So this stuff is going back, to Hoover constantly. This is 1947. Guy Bannister's doing his thing. He's a respected FBI agent. I think he becomes SAC, Special Agent in Charge in Chicago.
Yes.
And then eventually he retires from Chicago and he winds up in New Orleans.
Interesting.
And he opens up a detective agency. Okay? So it's the Guy Bannister Detective Agency in New Orleans. And Guy Bannister is a racist son of a bitch and very anti-communist, belongs to all the right-wing organizations, hates everybody. He's a guy you really have a hard time getting along with, based in New Orleans, involved with a lot of shady characters, including a guy called Jack Martin. Jack Martin was one of his so-called researchers. He worked for a guy out of that office. And another guy that was around at the time was a guy called David Ferry. David Ferry also did some research for Guy Bannister. David Ferry also involved in very strange extreme right organizations, anti-communist groups, stuff like that.
As was Chrisman.
As was Chrisman. Because why? Why do we even know about this? Well, because one of the other people that kind of hung out at Guy Bannister's location was a guy called Lee Harvey Oswald. Now, we all know Lee Harvey Oswald, Guy Bannister Detective Agency. He had stamped the address of his agency on his Fair Play for Cuba leaflets, which is how we know these people went together.
Right.
Not only that, but Lee Oswald was in the CAP unit that was being run by David Ferry back in the day.
And did we mention that address was the same building as Guy Bannister's?
Same address, Guy Bannister's address.
Just the other side of the street.
Right.
Camp Street, I think it was.
It's Camp Street.
Yeah.
It's the same building.
Yep.
Depends what door you walk.
Right.
So there you go. All these people, right? You have David Ferry, you have Jack Martin, you have Guy Bannister, you have Lee Harvey Oswald in one building. But wait, there's more. So back in 1967 or so, is it 68? We have the district attorney in New Orleans, right? Very famous guy.
Mm-hmm.
This district attorney decides, he says, there's something really weird about this Kennedy assassination stuff. I was disturbed by what happened in 63. There was like notices there was something to do with David Ferry. There was, connections to New Orleans. I didn't quite understand at the time. Guy Bannister was involved. I know Guy. weird guy. He had that detective agency, right? So
Yeah.
he's putting these pieces together, and he opens up an investigation into the assassination, thinking that the plot took place in New Orleans. Lee Harvey Oswald was there. Everybody was there who mattered in this thing. Maybe it had something to do with New Orleans. So they start pulling at threads. And the threads they pull lead them to Guy Bannister, obviously, who was hunting UFOs in 1947. And it leads them to Fred Krisman, who was a victim of a UFO by association in 1947, who was involved in this thing with the airline pilots and the blowing up of the plane and all the rest of it. What are the odds that in 1947, a UFO incident that attracts Fred Krisman and Guy Bannister then turns into the assassination conspiracy in 1963, the purported conspiracy, right? Same guys, Krisman involved, Bannister involved, Krisman involved in the same kind of weird extreme right organizations as everybody else. They all know each other. Fred Krisman's in a weird church. David Ferry's in a weird church. Jack Martin's in a weird church. And it's all the same church. The one that I belonged to in 1968.
United Life, right?
Yeah. And then, well, I wasn't involved in any conspiracies. Thank you very much. But the same bunch of people. And
Krisman has this strange background that he was maybe OSS. He was a pilot.
Yeah.
The Easy Papers, which are a kind of myth.
But he knew Clay Shaw.
So Clay Shaw, which was the Tommy Lee Jones character,
right?
For some reason, he was the only arrest I think Garrison made. The first call goes to Fred Krisman.
Yes.
Why?
We don't know. To this day, we don't know. But
he was subpoenaed.
Yes, he was interviewed. He was interviewed.
And he said, I'm in New Orleans to help this guy Tom get a record contract.
Yes, right.
And I think the transcript is like a page and a half. That's
it.
That's it.
And it was Beckham, right? Tommy Beckham?
Tommy Beckham.
Yeah. And Tommy Beckham also involved in the churches.
Yep, and the right-wing stuff.
And all the rest of it. But nothing to see here, right?
No. And I think Krisman is accused of being a chaos agent for Boeing.
Yeah, there was that rumor.
Trigger Man.
Possibly.
Mm-hmm.
Grassy Knoll.
We don't know.
We don't know.
One of the Tramps, perhaps.
One of the Tramps, yeah. Howard Hunt might have been one of the Tramps.
Might have been.
Howard Hunt had a major beef with Kennedy, we know. Hated him because of the Bay of Pigs, not giving the air support.
Yep.
Kennedy hated the CIA at that point. So who do they put in charge of the Warren Commission? But Allen Dulles.
The last guy
Kennedy
you would want. Right.
In charge of that investigation. The last guy you would want. So it goes on and like that.
It does.
It's nauseating. Right?
But Dulles is a great segue, unless you want to add more color to that story. It's a great segue into the 9.
I know where you're going. Yep. Well, yeah.
That's so. Now we're going to New Year's Eve, 1952.
Let's not get there just yet.
Take it away.
Let's open the door.
Okay.
And say, why are we going to talk about the 9 in this situation? Well, because of Oswald.
Right.
We already talked about how weird it was that you had Fred Krisman, you had, David Ferry, Jack Martin, Guy Bannister, all these people involved somehow in the assassination. And they all have like UFO connections and weird religion connections.
We know they've been together. We know they're spotted together. We know
they knew each other.
At the Ruby's bar, Tippett's and Ruby's, everyone's there.
Everybody's there. They're all part of this. And now there's poor Lee Harvey Oswald in the middle of it. The poor bastard never had a chance, right? He's surrounded on all sides.
He's a patsy.
He's like the ultimate patsy.
Yes. He's
like the poster boy for patsies. So here's this poor guy. I mean, I'm saying poor guy in a sense, in a kind of pejorative sense.
Right.
But he's desperately trying to find a job, right? He's looking for a job in Texas now. He was in New Orleans. He got busted in New Orleans for the fair play for Cuba stuff. So there's a problem there. So now he's going to go from New Orleans. He was from New Orleans. So now he's leaving New Orleans. He's going to Texas.
What's the timeline of his defection at this point? Is this prior? He's back.
He's back from the defection, for sure.
So he defects to Minsk?
Yeah, where he's known as Alec.
As Alec.
We'll get to that later.
Okay.
So he defects to Minsk, where he's known as Alec, and he defects back to the United States with a Russian-born wife who's the niece of a GRU colonel, a military intelligence colonel in the Soviet Army.
And with
no problem.
No problem. And with a convenient loan from State Department, too.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, come on back. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know you defected and you gave up your citizenship and all that. No hard feelings, man. So he comes back. So he's now in Dallas, and he needs to find a job. He needs what to do. What am I going to do? There's a guy called George de Mohrenschildt, a very strange operator himself, a guy with a lot of sleazy connections, maybe Nazi connections, and all this kind of stuff. And he says, we can help you out. And he introduces him to a number of people. I'm trying to, how do I parse this down to where it makes sense?
Ruth?
Well, yeah, it's Ruth Payne.
Mm-hmm.
But, okay, well, let's use that. Ruth Payne.
This is a lot right now.
Yeah, it is
this
a lot. And I know people are listening to what? I can't keep track of all this.
It's going to work.
Ruth Payne wants to study Russian. That's her story. This is 1963 when the world thinks Russia is the Antichrist, right? So she wants to study Russian. She's Quaker. She's open to it. Yeah, no problem. I want to study Russian. And de Mohrenschildt says, well, I have the perfect guy for you. Here's Lee Oswald. He's from Russia. I mean, he speaks some Russian, but his wife speaks fluent Russian. She is Russian, right? And, this is their group that they're meeting of Russian Orthodox people, right? So a lot of the people attending this party where they all meet are members of the Russian Orthodox Church outside Russia, which I introduced to you a long time ago, about 4 or 5 years ago in this interview. And we talked to you about the Russian Orthodox Church outside Russia, the anti-communist, pro-Nazi, briefly, Russian Orthodox Church. Oh, they're going to hate me for this. You're going to get mail. But this is inescapable. This is what happened. So, and Ruth Payne is like, oh, this is cool. Let me learn some Russian from, your wife, your very beautiful wife, and you have these kids. Stay at home with us. You're looking for an apartment. Stay with me for a while. You can teach me Russian. Meanwhile, I'll help you find a job in the Texas School Book Depository. Okay, so he gets a job in the Texas because of Ruth Payne.
Yep.
Ruth Payne is the key. Ruth Payne also is another key to another whole branch of this thing. She's the daughter-in-law of a guy called Arthur Young. Arthur Young invented the Bell helicopter during the war. Arthur Young gave up on military technology and all that sort of thing. He wanted to study occultism and the paranormal and astrology and spiritualism. He devoted his life then to studying that.
Because he made a fortune with
he made a fortune.
Right, so he said, I'm out.
Yeah, he says, I'm out. I got my money. I don't want to deal with this anymore. I'm going to study spooks.
Right.
So he has a friend called Andrea Puharich, who's a medical doctor, but also with a lot of very strange intelligence ties.
Yes.
And in ties to anti-communists as well. And Puharich was about to take up a position at a hospital on the West Coast, and Kaiser Wilhelm, I think. And instead, he meets some friends of his who are fellow Serbo-Croatian people, and they're saying to him, nah, why you want to do that? Why don't you set up here, just stay in Maine, the state of Maine. It's winter, you're snowed in now, you can't go home anyway. Stay here and open up an institute to study like paranormal things, and to do your electronics research too, because you're doing weird things with electronics. You're putting microphones in people's brains and stuff. This sounds pretty cool. Why don't we do that? So he kind of falls in line with this and says, okay, yeah, maybe I'll do that. And he opens up this thing in Maine where he's going to do this, the Round Table Foundation. And he's going to do all this kind of weird stuff there. And the people who induced him to do this, these fellow Serbo-Croatians of his, they were friends of Nikola Tesla. In fact, the gentleman in charge of this defection played the violin at Tesla's funeral.
I didn't know that.
Yes. So these people were really in with Tesla, and they're telling Puharich, I think you should do this stuff instead. And Puharich says, sounds good. Maybe I'll do that. I won't take up a prestigious position running a hospital on the West Coast. I'm going to stay here in Maine in a barn and do this instead. So 1952 to 53, there's a seance. He invites all his closest friends. His closest friends are blue blood Americans, right? Astors, DuPonts, people like that. Forbes.
Royalty,
American royalty, and American money, and
Yes.
American royalty. Arthur Young is there with his wife, the excessively nomenclatured Ruth Forbes Payne Young. Okay, so her name tells you her story.
It does.
Forbes is in there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Ruth Forbes Payne. Thomas was her husband at that time. Was kind of a Trotskyite or something, but he was related to one of the signers of the Declaration of Independence.
Yep.
And then you had, of course, Arthur Young himself. So she has all these connections, and her best friend is Mary Douglas, I think her name is, and Mary Douglas was the BFF, the best friend of her, of Ruth Forbes Payne Young, but also the girlfriend, the mistress of Alan Dulles.
Long-time mistress.
Long time. Wrote about it. Everybody knew. Very intense connections between all of these people.
Yes.
So those are just two of the people at the seance. There's an Astor, right?
Yep.
Of the famous Astor family, whose, was it her father that died in the sinking of the Titanic?
Yeah, the wealthiest person on that boat.
Wealthiest, yeah. And there she is. She's attending. There was a DuPont there. DuPont, no more needs to be said. And a couple of other people who have kind of strange pedigrees, which we can kind of explore later. They were hard to pin down. So there's a group of 9 people and a medium from India. And this medium, who, according to his family, because I contacted him.
You did?
I went back and contacted the family to see if I could find out if he ever was really a medium in India. And they said, are you kidding me? He was never a medium in India. He was interested in religion. He was in the United States for some world religious conference or something, but he never evinced any mediumistic abilities to us. At least that's what they'd said in writing to me. So he's the medium, though, and he's going to make contact with some forces. And he does, evidently, and he starts talking. And Puharich is taking all this down. Like, he's transcribing exactly what's being said. Puharich asks him questions, scientific questions. He's getting correct answers from this guy who has no scientific background.
And who's he channeling?
Well, this is what we don't know yet.
Okay.
In the beginning, we're not quite sure.
Okay.
Except they say something strange. They say, you are 9 individuals. You are 9 people. We are 9. So whoever they were 9 of them. And you are 9 and we are 9. Together, we're going to change the course of history, right? We're going to change the course of what's happening in the world. We don't quite know what that means yet, because they're kind of ambiguous about it. But they go on and on about it. They go on about different things, and they talk about all kinds of stuff. You can actually read these transcripts. Puharich published them. There was no mystery about it. There was no intent to hide anything about this.
We know all these people were there.
Yeah, we know the people were there. We know who they are, who their background is. He started attracting more people like that later. So there was a lot of other people from the paranormal sort of community were involved. But these were all people that were involved in this seance. And it turns out, eventually, it's revealed that these 9 individuals are in some kind of UFO. They're evidently in what they deliberately term low Earth orbit. So they're here. They can't be seen, but they're here. And they're somehow directing things that are happening on the planet, which is what a lot of people are saying now anyway, right? They're saying, are they controlling us? The alien presence is here. How is this happening, right? Back in 1952, 53, that's what these people believed.
52 is a wild year for this stuff.
Yeah, because what else happened in 52?
The UFOs over the White House, the weird press conference where the Bible's mentioned along with the
press conference freaks me out.
That's a wild thing. Why they're talking about angels and demons in 52.
And who was at the press conference, who was one of the people organizing that and speaking at it, was the guy at Roswell, the Air Force general who was there at Roswell.
That's right.
Who doesn't bring up Roswell in this press conference.
So step out of the story for a second and tell me what's going on in your mind as you're untangling this. Are you like, these are all holy shit moments, and
yes.
They just keep piling up.
They keep piling up, especially when I realized that, Ruth Payne went up and visited her relatives just a couple of months before the assassination and told them what was going on. Said, I got this Russian defector in my house and his wife and kids, right?
Right.
I mean, that means that's a direct plug into this whole world, this whole other world that's going on. And poor Lee Oswald's like in the middle of this. He's like clueless,
right?
I believe. And he's also involved in New Orleans with all these other weird people. More UFO stuff, more UFO connections. This is a UFO connection to the assassination. And
you're not a UFO researcher up to this point, right?
I wasn't. This what brought me into the UFO stuff was finding this out. I was fascinated by UFOs like everybody else, but I wasn't planning on writing about it. And then I come across all this UFO stuff for the assassination. I'm saying, oh my God, who's going to believe this?
I was just going to ask you, you've got to be thinking, I don't want to do this.
Yeah,
this sounds nuts.
Yeah, absolutely. I said, I'll have to start from scratch on the UFO stuff then. I'll have to become an expert on it, at least as much as we can be, and figure out why this connects, And it turns out you can't figure out why it connects. It just does. So you got to start with the basic premise. It connects. Okay, now how? What are the ramifications? What are the implications? What can we predict on the basis of this? It's tough going because these people show up and then they disappear. They show up and disappear. I'm talking about the actual people, not just the UFOs. So you're dealing with this conundrum. It's impossible to figure out. And one of my favorite characters in this whole thing was David Ferry. I mean, David Ferry, played by Joe Pesci in the movie JFK. You can't forget him. He has the fake red wig and the whole thing. And he's like smoking cigarettes like crazy and drinking coffee, and he can't, They revealed it in the JFK movie in that scene after his supposed suicide.
Right.
So there's Kevin Costner there. There's the clerical garments. There's a photograph of Ferry with the bishop's mitre.
That's right.
Not a Catholic bishop's mitre, an Orthodox bishop's mitre. Only if you're into it would you pick it out right away. That crown he was wearing is what the Orthodox wear, not what the Catholics wear. So he was in the Orthodox doing this Orthodox stuff.
I don't think they really address that in the movie, do they?
Oh, not at all.
Right.
Even Jim Garrison, the DA at the time doing this, he couldn't figure it out. He wrote to the church committee. He said, guys, there's these weird churches. I don't know what they represent on those. You should probably check it out. I couldn't find out what the connection was.
Yeah.
He blatantly said, I have no idea. Threw up his arms. Can't handle it. So I feel for him, believe me. So, yeah. So there's the church stuff. There's the UFO stuff. There's the intelligence operations that are obviously underneath all of this as well. And there's people who are obviously not really intelligence type people. There's the Arthur Youngs of the world. Yes, they have intelligence connections for sure, but they weren't running ops. These are just people who were peripherally around them. Puharich also, of course, he had a military commission during the Korean War when all this was happening. In 1953, he was giving speeches at Edwards Arsenal, but he was giving speeches on weaponizing the paranormal.
That's right.
So
that's right.
We're in the thick of it with these people. We're in the thick of it there.
And he's the one who brings Uri Geller to SRI.
Yes. And Uri Geller starts channeling the Nine.
Starts channeling. So what blows my mind is you've got Puharich brings Uri Geller into what will be Stargate, SRI, Russell Targ, Hal Puthoff, To the Stars, Peter Lavenda. There you are again.
There you are again. Can't get out of it.
What's going on?
Every time I think I'm out,
they pull me back in. What's going on?
I didn't approach Tom DeLonge. I was like a poor innocent guy when he called me. And I thought, yeah, sure, you're Tom DeLonge from Blink-182. Yeah, right. Tell me another one. Right. And it turned out it was true. And he said, no, we're going to do this. We're going to knock on doors. We're going to get some answers, man. But we're going to do it in the right way. And I want you to help me do this. I said, okay, fine. I'm on. It sounds good. I don't know how much I can help, but I'll try. So yeah, that came out of the clear blue sky. I did not go looking for Tom DeLonge or Blink-182. I didn't go looking for any of this stuff. Okay.
I'll find you. We're going to come up on a break, and on the other side of the break, we'll get into consciousness, maybe some Jacques Vallée. But before then, how about a yarn or two about Kino? Your Men in Black experience is wild. If you want to tell either of those.
Well, Aquino will take us a little bit more, probably. Well, it'll bring us back to
whatever you want to do.
We've already talked about.
Whatever you want to do.
The Men in Black thing is something that, again, this makes no sense also. And it's because it makes no sense makes it important, if you know what I mean. It means there's something else at work, something else at operation that we cannot realistically comprehend. I was living.
And every time you tell a story, the skeptics step up, and then you smack them right in the mouth, which is what you're going to do right now.
Yeah, I'm gonna do my best to tell you straight what's going on here, but I can't promise anything. I can't promise your reaction, what it'll be. I'm living in Rhode Island. I'm living in Westerly, Rhode Island. It's a small town on the border of Connecticut. You can go back and forth state. From each state, it's just walking across the street, and suddenly you're in Connecticut. So it's that close. And I'm living in this house on Ashaway Road, and this is a town. It's a small Rhode Island town. It's not a city. There's not like a lot of traffic. There's it's a small town. A couple of houses here, a couple of houses there, a house across the street. It's like that, rural. I mean, very suburban. Look put it that way, on the verge of rural. So I'm living in this old house, and on a, kind of a hill. There's a driveway that leads down to the main road, which is just a 2 lanes, right? Basic road. And I've just come from shopping, I think. I had learned to drive by this point, just for those of you who are keeping track. Yes, I did learn to drive. But I was 38 years old when I learned. So people tell me you really haven't learned to drive yet. I did learn. I'm unpacking the car from shopping. And I look up and I notice there's an old black Cadillac, like an old model Cadillac, big black car, parked, not parked, idling in front of me, in front of the house and my car and my driveway. And out of the window, the driver's side window, somebody's aiming a camera at me with a very large lens, this wide lens. And I'm thinking, what the hell is this? I put down the bag of groceries and I start walking over to the car because this is not done. This
Right.
is, it's small town New England. You don't do this. I walked over to it and they just took off. And I tried to see the license plate number, but I didn't get a chance to get all the numbers. But it was the same color as the Rhode Island plate. But a Rhode Island plate and a federal plate, they were the same colors at that time. So I didn't know what I was looking at. I said, this is very weird. I ran back to my car. I was going to follow them. For some reason, I felt I had to do that. This was just too strange.
Right.
And, I had run-ins before with people doing things like that, following me or doing that kind of stuff. So it pisses me off. So I'm going to follow. I got to my car, and another car pulls in right behind me, blocking my way of getting out of the driveway. And it's another old car. It's an old station wagon with the wood paneling on it. I haven't seen those like in years. And out of the car, there's 2 women, the front seat, driver's side and passenger. They open the doors. They have these sort of wide eyes. They get out of the car, and they're dressed kind of oddly in like old-fashioned clothing. Not really old, but like 1950s era clothing. Like cloth coat, that kind of thing. And they walk out of the car, and they look at me sweetly. And they say, do you know where De Vilbus lives? And I'm really pissed off. I want to get out and follow the other car.
Right. It's getting away.
It's getting away. I said, there's nobody named De Vilbus here. Thank you. They get in the car and they drive off. But of course, by then it's too late. I can't get out. And I don't realize, I always kick myself. It's obviously was a 2-car team.
Of course.
And they blocked me from leaving, right? Obviously, because they were just as weird as the guys in the other car. 2 very old model cars, but in pretty good condition, with strange people in them, messing with me. So that kind of bothered me, and kind of really bothered me.
Yeah, that feels like a message because you've been surveilled the whole time.
But by what or whom?
I don't know because that's sloppy tradecraft.
Well, yeah. Plus, it's expensive tradecraft.
Right.
2 cars, 4 people.
Right.
That's a lot of money for somebody like me just sitting at home. Right?
So they're sending you a message.
Right. It has to be a message of some kind. So I look up, I think, De Vilbus. I said, that name sounds vaguely familiar. I start looking it up. Nobody in Rhode Island with that name at all. So that's not happening. But then it occurred to me, I know the name. It's the name of a company in Ohio. They make machinery. And the reason I know is because a guy I worked with in Rhode Island gave that name and phone number to me saying, you should call these guys because they might be good customers, right? So I had called De Vilbus, I think, once or something, and nothing ever happened with it. That's fine. But the guy who gave me the phone number to call De Vilbus had used to work at Huntington, not Huntington, what's the name? In Alabama, Huntsville.
NASA?
NASA. He worked for NASA. He was an engineer. He worked at NASA. And he retired and started working up in Rhode Island and worked at this thing. So he knew Werner von Braun. He had met von Braun personally.
Wow.
So he had stories he would tell,
And he recommends De Vilbus.
And then these 2 people come up there and ask me about De Vilbus. It's like they looked inside my brain for a possible name, a connection. Oh, De Vilbus, that'll work. And they gave me De Vilbus. Okay, that's not the end of the story, though. That was weird enough. Okay, I was fine, but I was really annoyed. I was annoyed at myself for not being more alert. Back to Singapore. Remember I said I was in Singapore. I was constantly in and out of Singapore for years. And so I'm in Singapore. I just landed at Singapore airport, probably from abroad somewhere, from the States or from Europe, I forget where. And so I'm dragging myself through the airport. This is why I always term it dragging myself, because that's what I felt. I have my same suitcase, probably the similar one that I came in with today. And I was dragging it in, and I feel a tap on my shoulder. Someone just taps me on the shoulder. Now, this is Singapore, and people don't do that. kind of straight-laced here. We don't go chummy each other.
Right.
But it could have been somebody I knew from the States or somebody tapped me on the shoulder. But they just tapped me on the shoulder and left. I turned around to see who it was. It was the girl from the car.
What?
And she looks at me and smiles and waves like that.
How many years later is this?
This would have been in the 90s. This happened in
And this first
good
was
10, at least 10, 15 years.
so it's because the first one was like, I think 88 around there,
It was the time of the first Gulf War.
1990.
Okay. So this would have happened in about 10 years later, 1999, roughly 2000, something like
Are
that.
you sure it was her? Okay. I have to do
She
my
looked
job.
at me like she recognized,
I have
you know.
to.
She looked at me like she knew I recognized her, you know. And she
This is-
waved.
This
and
is the message.
And I said, I started following her, right? Because you don't do that. I mean, that's like too blatant. And I said, who is this? What is going on? I go running after her. And of course, she disappears in
Sure.
the crowd. Later, a couple of years later, I meet Timothy Good, the UFO,
Mm-hmm.
British UFO researcher. We were doing this thing in Amsterdam. And this secret space conference in Amsterdam. There's videos of it all over the place. So I used to read Timothy Good's book. So the two of us were in this hotel in the middle of nowhere. It's Amsterdam, but we're in the middle of nowhere. It's not like the cool part of Amsterdam. So we're sitting there going, okay, what are we going to do now, right? And he had a bottle of scotch. I said, okay, we're going to drink it. So we just sat there in his room. We drank, I think, the bottle of scotch that night. And he started talking, to me. And he's talking to me about, if you want to catch them in the act, if you want to know if they're among us, it's all you have to do. And I think he wrote about this in one of his books as well. Just go to a very public place, and an airport's the perfect place, or just any very public place. Just sit there, close your eyes, think for a second, and just say to yourself, to them, if you're here, say hello, give me a sign. Just give it a minute, and open your eyes and look and see if anything happens, right? And somebody will turn around at some point and kind of look at you, wink at you, give you the high five, something. They will acknowledge, and that will be it.
Well, you just took a turn. So we went from intelligence surveillance to the non-intelligence surveillance.
Right. And I interpret what Timothy Good told me as a way of saying they are here, right? And we can mistake them for people like us. We can mistake them for intelligence agents. The whole Men in Black, were they really intelligence agents or were they something else?
So did you think, like I just did,
Mm-hmm.
did Timothy make me go, holy shit, I thought they're just sloppy agents. But
Well, yeah, I mean, initially, until Singapore, I thought they were sloppy agents.
so Singapore, then you're like, there's
Singapore
something
kind of-
more.
There's something more. This is not right, right? If you're an intelligence agent, why would you call my attention to the fact you're in the same airport?
I would think it was a threat, as a horse head in the bed.
Possibly, yeah. But they weren't carrying any suitcases in the airport. They were like free as a bird, just walking around,
So speculate then. What was this? Clearly a message.
Bye.